Hello everybody. Today we will talk about non-defining relative clause. And last week we talked about defining relative clause. Let's remember firstly, and then we will talk about non-defining. And at the end of the lesson, we will see the difference between defining and the non-defining relative clause. And let's start with defining relative clause, how to use defining relative clause and why we use relative clause. And it provide defining relative clause provide essential information. Okay, it's important about the noun or noun phrase they modify is the first rule, and the second rule is who, whom, which can be replaced by that. We can use that instead of who, whom, which, and defining a relative clause. And the third one, relative pronouns can be omitted if they are object position. We learned before, as you remember, and they provide answers to questions such as which one, what kind. And as you remember, we asked the question which woman and or which house, and we define the house or the woman thanks to relative clause. Let's focus on the example. The people are very kind. Okay, I don't know which people. Okay, and I must define the people. Okay, and let's define thanks to relative clause. The people are very kind. It's the main clause as you see there, and thanks to relative clause I define the people who live here. Okay, which people who live here. Now I know the answer. Okay, so I define the people thanks to relative clause, relative pronoun. Okay, this city was interesting. Again, I don't know which city, and I need to know. I can learn the city thanks to relative clause. The city which or that I visited. Okay, which city? It is the answer of this question. Okay, now I know the city. Let's talk about non-defining relative clause. And non-defining relative clause provide additional information about the noun or noun phrases they modify. Okay, and defining relative clause provide essential, but it's additional. It means extra information. Okay, I know the woman or the boy, but I can give information, some extra information about them. Okay, about something or someone thanks to non-defining relative clause. When they are taken out from the sentence, the information given in the main clause doesn't change. Okay, that is, it's not essential at all, it means. Okay, and commas. Okay, we must use comma. Okay, you know comma, it means comma are used in separate them from the main clause in written English, of course. In speech or spoken language, they are separated from the main clause by the help of brief pauses and drops in intonation produced by the speaker, of course. But in the written English, we must use comma. Okay, don't forget that comma, it is comma. Who, whom, which cannot be replaced by that. That isn't used in non-defining relative clause. And relative pronouns cannot be omitted. Okay, and we can omit the relative pronouns if it is in the object position, defining relative clause. But in non-defining relative clause, relative pronouns cannot be omitted in any position. You must use the relative pronouns. Don't forget it again. They never provide answers to questions such as which one or which kind, but only give extra information. It's so important, okay? And in non-defining relative clause, we provide additional or extra information about something or someone. Let's see on the example. Jane is 7 years old. Who is Jane? I know the answer, okay? It's so obvious, but thanks to non-defining relative clause, I give some extra information about Jane, okay? Jane, I use comma, who is in first grade, comma again, is 7 years old. It's our main clause, and it's extra information. It means relative clause. It's our relative clause. Thanks to relative clause, we give extra information about Jane, okay? If we don't use relative clause, we know Jane. Who is Jane, okay? I know it's so obvious. I talk about Jane. Okay. The new shop sells all kinds of clothes. Okay. Which shop? The new shop. Okay, I know. I define the shop. And a new shop or the new shop, it's I know that now, and I want to give some extra information about the new shop, okay, which is near our school. I use comma again, relative clause. I separated relative clause thanks to commas, which is near our school, has all kinds of clothes, okay? It's the extra information again. Okay, let's see on the examples clearly. We write defining or non-defining relative clause. Please remember the rules, okay? Focus on the examples now. The city of Brasilia, comma, focus on that, which is the capital of Brazil, was founded in 1960. The city of Brasilia, it's so obvious, okay? We said the city of Brasilia. It's the non-defining, okay? It's an extra information. So we can say it's non-defining relative clause. The neighbors are angry at the man whose dog annoys them. Okay. Which man? They angry which man? Do you know the answer? No, it's not obvious, and it's essential information, okay? So it's the defining relative clause. My friend Jane, again there is a comma, whose mother is Italian, okay, has moved to Italy. Yeah. Okay, my friend Jane. It's obvious. Is it obvious? Yes, it's obvious, I think. Jane, she is my friend. But whose mother is Italian, has moved to Italy. It's an extra information. Again, it's the clue for you, of course. If there is a comma, it is non-defining relative clause. Yes, the people who live next door are moving to another district. The people, okay, which people? I don't know. And there is no comma, and it is defining relative clause, which this information is essential for me, okay? My new car is defined, okay? Which I bought 3 months ago, uses up a lot of fuel. And which car? My new car. I know the answer, but I give extra information, so it is non-defining relative clause again. Let's continue. The furniture which we ordered last week hasn't been delivered yet. The furniture. Which furniture? I ask this question, and if I can answer this question, it is relative, defining relative clause, and so I can say it is defining relative clause. Okay, Stephen King. Who is Stephen King? Who is? She is Stephen King. Who is a best-selling novelist? Okay, there is commas again, and we'll publish 2 more novels next year. It is, of course, non-defining relative clause. Jimmy, who has been my best friend for many years, works in a car factory. Jimmy. Who is Jimmy? And it is extra information, and so it is non-defining relative clause. Let's write these sentences non-defined. Let's make these sentences non-defining. Okay, relative clause. Join the sentences with non-defining relative clause. Picasso was a famous Spanish painter. He died in 1973. Let's talk about Picasso. Okay, comma, died in, it's the extra information, it's our relative clause, it's main clause, focus on it, in 1973, again comma, was a famous Spanish writer. Okay, my grandfather can't drive a car anymore. He is 76 years old. Okay, I define my grandfather. My grandfather, comma, I give information about him, who is 76 years old, can't drive a car anymore. Okay, The Lord of the Rings was written by Tolkien. It was the first published in 1954. Okay, The Lord of the Rings, I talk about the book, so I use which. Okay, it's an object. Which was is the extra information. First published in 1964, and use comma, was written by Tolkien. Okay, the new student, okay, is the information, extra information, who joined. Okay, I talk about her, who joined our class last month, came from London. Okay, yes, Titanic was written and directed by John Cameron, and it is a 1997 romantic disaster film. It's the extra information about the film again. Titanic, it's an object, okay, which is a 1997 romantic disaster. Okay, was written and directed by John Cameron. Okay, and that's all for today.